I built my aerobic base for 10 weeks and I accidentally got in my best shape ever. Oops. And in this video, I'll take you through exactly what I did and how I trained to get faster. I've been running since late 2022, and throughout this entire time, I'd only had one period of base building. And this period was between May and July of 2023 when I was coming back from my first serious running injury. And during this time of base building, my fitness absolutely blew up, pun intended. And it set me up for an insane 6 months where I ticked off a 5K, 10K, and a half marathon PB. And all of that was without injury or time off. Pretty successful, right? So here was my New Year's mission, to smash out another 10-week base building block and become an absolute aerobic tank. Okay, that's enough. And during this base phase, I was able to take 26 seconds off my 5K PB and 10 seconds per kilometer off my easy pace at the same heart rate. Now later in the video, I'll take you through all of my data and my training so that you can get a better idea of what I did to get much faster in a base building block. And I'll also show you what elite athletes do very similarly to get the same results. But first, let's talk about the 3 different scenarios that you should do base building, and one scenario where you should do the spicy base building block that I've created. So here's the most generally accepted way of building your aerobic base, and it involves a lot of zone 2 aerobic running, which makes sense. Doing lots of lower aerobic running is what's gonna build that aerobic engine that's perfect for winning every park run every Saturday, which is what everyone wants in life. Right? We can also see that there's an emphasis on shorter intensity workouts or short tempo runs to try and keep the legs turning over, which is awesome. And if there is some speed work, it's kept short and sweet. Perfect. Here are 3 different scenarios of when this style of base training is actually really good. Scenario number 1, this is perfect when people just start running, because the goal is to build your aerobic base, but also to build the joints and the muscles to be able to take the pounding. And for someone like this phase of base building might last anywhere from a couple of months to a year. So if you're starting your running journey like this, then you're making the right decision. Scenario number 2 is recovering from an injury. This ensures that you take it really easy and build back your aerobic base that you probably lost a little bit. So here are the rules that I would use to determine how long this post-injury base phase should be. Now, if you've taken a week off training due to injury, then doing a week of base building before recommencing your training would be absolutely perfect. Oh, this hurts. But if you've taken 2 weeks off training, it's likely that you've lost a bit of fitness. And so I would do a 2 to 3 week mini base building block to bring your fitness back up before recommencing training again. And then by the 3 or 4 week mark, once you've recommenced training, you've regained all of your fitness again. So we're all good. But by 4 weeks, not only would you have lost lots of fitness, but you would have lost the physiological adaptations that happen when you run lots and lots and lots. For example, your heart muscle can reduce in size and your plasma volume in your blood can actually start to reduce after just 2 weeks. And this usually results in a 6 to 8% loss in VO2 max. The tissues in your body have also reduced in strength over this time. So if you were to go out and just go back to normal training, not only will you be not as fast, but you won't be as strong. And so in this case, I would say a 6 to 8 week base building block to rebuild your tissues and also your cardiovascular system is going to be perfect for you, and it's going to set you up for some good training. And this last scenario is post-race recovery. Ideally, you want a couple of weeks to a month of easy base building to recoup the legs and get yourself going again, especially after something as torturous as a marathon. But what about a half marathon? I found myself feeling pretty fresh again after about 6 to 7 days of recovery. I had 10 to 12 weeks between my half marathon training block and my marathon training block, and I was already fully recovered and still fit. So I decided to spice it up and create a new way of base building. Here's what I did. Zumba classes. I've been doing Zumba classes every night to keep myself fit because Zumba is the only way. Just kidding. There are actually 3 things that I did in my base building block to spice it up a bit, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But first, let's talk about the data and what I actually did during this base building block. Now, during this training block, I ran 790 kilometers with an average of 80 kilometers per week. Now, let's look at the distribution of my heart rate data. And as we can see, I had 61% of my mileage below 127 beats per minute. 127 beats per minute is around my low end of my zone 2 training. And I had 28% between 127 and 142 beats per minute, which is going to be right in my zone 2. 7% of my running was in the 143 to 158 beats per minute zone, which is around my steady running. 4% of my mileage in my threshold zone, which is from 158 108 to 170 beats per minute. And then only 1% in my VO2 max range. Pretty interesting, right? And this general downtrend wasn't just in my heart rate values at a certain pace. It was also being able to push a little bit faster for the same heart rate. And here's where it gets a little bit more interesting, because if we have a look at my weekly schedule during that time, I was able to get 3 intensity sessions in per week while still maintaining that 80-20 rule that everyone talks about all the time. Well, there's 3 things that I was doing to get faster whilst also building my aerobic base. And this first thing is the holy grail of training that elite athletes around the world are using to get fitter and fitter and fitter year after year without having to run hard all the time. Threshold training, of course. Now, what we mean when we say threshold training is a certain intensity zone in which your body can no longer use fats for fuel. And what happens is the carbohydrate use in a certain workout starts to uptick. And we can actually measure this by looking at blood lactate. Now, when blood lactate starts to rise off its baseline, then we know that we've hit our first kind of threshold zone. But when it spikes rapidly again, we know that that is the no-go zone where you're gonna just blow up. And we'd be running our 5K and our 10K pace in that zone. So we don't worry about that in base training. So threshold training is all about running in a certain pace where we're not going too fast that we're accumulating too much fatigue or blood lactate, but we're going fast enough that we can let it accumulate over a kilometer or a 2-kilometer block, and then we can rest and let our body get better and better and better at pulling that blood lactate out of our system. And the better that we get at that, the higher that our aerobic capacity will become. So we can run faster and faster whilst remaining aerobic, which is absolutely epic. Now, threshold training can be done in base training, but it's a little bit different to how you do threshold training prepping for a race. During a base phase, we do shorter repetitions rather than stretching our threshold out over a 20-minute block, for example, like you would do in a half marathon block. During my half marathon block, not that long ago, I was doing 5 to 8 kilometer blocks at threshold pace to get really fit for that half marathon. But I don't think we can do that all year round without risking injury. Now, rather than trying to extend that threshold pace over a longer period, during a base phase, we're just trying to maintain our top end speed so we can shorten the reps to 1 kilometer blocks or 2 kilometer blocks at a higher pace and still get that same threshold effect without getting too fatigued and without getting too fit that you then start to peak a little bit early in your year. Threshold pace should feel quite moderate to hard, but you're still in absolute control of the workout. During this kind of workout, you should be able to speak in 4 to 5 word sentences. That's just enough words to tell your mates that you're running with that that's your easy pace. This next thing that I added into my training block was strides, and lots of them. These cotton candy grapes are really good, by the way. So yes, I logged up to 15 to 20 kilometers of strides in this 10-week block, and these strides were at world record marathon pace. So yes, I can run at world record marathon pace, but probably only for a couple of 100 meters. So here's what I did. I ran 10 rounds of 100-meter strides at 80 to 90% of my maximum speed, and then had a really long break to get a full recovery. And these were usually done twice a week after 2 of my easy runs. And once again, these aren't necessarily hard because you have a long break and they're for a very short duration, but they really help to maintain that maximum speed that you're gonna need in shorter races like a 5K or a 10K. Because like I mentioned earlier, the key with base building is to maintain that top end speed and running economy whilst building your base, because we don't wanna start again at the end of this training block. And as you can see, these 100-meter strides add up over the time. Imagine if you did 10 rounds twice a week for an entire year. You would be logging up so many kilometers at an insane speed that your running economy is gonna be top notch. And because these don't fatigue you at all, it's basically free speed. And if we look at athletes like Haile Gebrselassie and Kenenisa Bekele, they're doing strides all week long, especially during their base building and marathon prep. And so should you if you want to build your base, but also keep getting faster. Now, this third thing that I changed to spice up my base building was adding in way more hills. And I got this idea from watching those really awesome videos of the Ugandans sprinting up hills. So cool. Cheptegei and Kiplimo and Kiplangat, they're all in Uganda smashing up these crazy hills all day long. So in a base phase, the workouts that I would do for hills would be 30-second and 1-minute repetitions with a really long break, trying to go at a moderate to higher intensity, around 80% of the actual speed that you'd be able to rocket up that hill. So we're making sure that we're holding back and not pushing too hard, because we're in base phase and we're not trying to peak for a race. We're trying to maintain and build our aerobic base. Now, there's one more bonus hack that I'm gonna add into this video, and that is to increase the length of your warm-ups and warm-downs. In this phase, I tried to add on an extra kilometer or two to my warm-ups and warm-downs, because once again, over a 10-week block, this is gonna add up to maybe 30 kilometers of extra base building that you're getting in for free. That's just an easy hack. Now, if you wanna have a deeper dive on the actual base building block that I planned out earlier in the year, then you're gonna have to watch this next video. So go and watch it. And that was the first take. Pretty good, eh?